Diners are for patty melts, not meltdowns, and for decaf and not demons. And yet, here we are with a snowball's chance in hell of getting out alive. Welcome to Blanket of Shadows. Andy mopped the floor behind the counter in the modest Cardinal Diner as regular Walter, the last remaining customer after lunch, rambled his usual complaints about the modern world as he stole sips from a flask in his jacket. Andy wasn't really listening, but he threw in a few "oh wows" and "that's crazies" to keep the tippling old man happy and in the tipping mood. Now, Andy wouldn't usually mop the floors before closing at 2 p.m., but he had a meeting with his probation officer in an hour. Falling snows on the small North Carolina town, where they were not prepared for even the slightest of dusting, meant unnecessary chaos in the streets, and he couldn't afford to be late again. He'd sent the last waitress home early to beat traffic and figured it would be easy to scoot out a bit early himself. "Well, I think that's about it for me," Walter said, and stood, placing some crumpled bills on the counter. Andy couldn't believe his luck, as sometimes it took some nudging to get Walter off his stool and out the door. Then the bell rang as the front door opened. What kind of person would just rush into a diner 10 minutes before closing on a snow day? Andy was about to find out. 3 people wandered inside. 2 frazzled adults and a child of about 10 with a blank expression. And then the kid's eyes locked with Andy's. Unblinking. Chilling. "I know you're about to close," the adult male said, "but my nephew wants some pancakes with whipped cream and sprinkles. Once no needs. We were driving by and saw the sign advertising the kids' cakes, and Jordan here... Look, we'll tip $20 and we'll get out of your way." Andy sized up the crew. If he didn't know any better, he'd say the kid was the one in charge, and the aunt and the uncle were terrified. This wasn't the normal joyful party asking for short stacks covered in sugar. Before Andy could answer, Walter opened his big fat mouth. "Or you could just man up and tell the kid no," Walter said. "Andy here's got places to go." Andy couldn't believe he was hearing these words from Walter, who was usually the issue at closing. Neither could the aunt and uncle, as they clutched their boy as if to shield him from the vitriol. The lights flickered as the boy's gaze turned from Andy to Walter, from chilling to vicious. "It's okay, Jordan," the aunt said. "Don't pay him any mind." The uncle stepped up to the counter with some urgency and put several 20s on the counter. "Please," he said. "It's been a rough day." Andy looked out at the snow, falling consistently now. With the clouds and the precipitation, everything was gray, and visibility was low. Andy figured there was some issue with the boy he didn't know about, and usually he'd be happy to help, but with the weather and the upcoming probation appointment, he needed to head out. "If you come back tomorrow, they're on me," Andy said. Walter sized up the boy. "Aren't you a bit too old for sprinkles?" Walter jeered. "I'm so sick of these pampered kids. Don't even know how tough life can get. If you were my kid, I'd..." But he never got a chance to complete that threat. Walter froze in fear. You seeing this?" Walter asked, looking to Andy for confirmation. Andy nodded. One of the big kitchen knives was floating in the air in front of Walter's throat, ready to slice. The boy calmly took a seat at the diner counter as his guardians huddled behind him. "I'll have the pancakes," he said. And suddenly, Andy was back at the botched robbery attempt that had sent him to prison in the first place and was the cause of his probation. That day, he hit rock bottom and he still felt like he was crawling back out of it. He thought of 3 things from that terrible incident that shaped his response to Jordan and the knife. First, he remembered that it was the drugs talking and not him. That's not to say he wasn't responsible for his actions, but when sober, he would never have run into the local pharmacy that sponsored his youth baseball team and pulled a gun. In Jordan, Andy recognized another person struggling for control of his own body. He had to find a way to connect with the boy and not the evil talking for him. For the moment, the best way he knew was through food. "Pancakes it is," Andy said. "Okay if I lock the..." he started, but the deadbolts locked on their own. Andy, still a bit bewildered, grabbed a batter dispenser and circled out 3 pancakes on the griddle. "You want to know a little secret?" he asked, trying to keep the mood light as all eyes were on him. No one responded. "Most of the breakfast places around here use similar batter mix, if not the same," he said. "Flour, baking soda, salt, sugar, and whatnot. Very common ingredients. Ours comes from a massive food service. You can get the same stuff in the store. It's what we do with it, how we serve it, that makes it seem special." Andy flipped the pancakes right on time for a perfect golden crust. "Is there something about pancakes that makes them special to you?" he asked. Oh God, he sounded just like the prison psychologist, he thought. Jordan glared at Andy, didn't answer. But for the first time, Jordan blinked and looked away, just for a moment. That's something, Andy thought. What he didn't know is that Jordan had momentarily drifted back to a snowy winter day when he was younger, and his mother had made him pancakes. It was such a warm moment, which made the present that much more painful. Now everyone was upset with his mother, but he blamed himself. It was his fault. "Are they almost ready?" the aunt asked nervously. Andy eyed them. "Just a moment," he said. Those last few seconds felt like an eternity. But eventually, Andy flipped the 3 pancakes off the griddle and into a short stack. He put whipped cream on top, grabbed the shaker of sprinkles, and it was empty. He furiously looked through the cabinets below, and there weren't any other bottles. He knew he had some coming on the shipment tomorrow, but that would be too late. "Is there a problem?" the uncle asked. He and his wife started to fidget. "Andy," Walter pleaded quietly. Andy put the pancakes in front of Jordan. "I have chocolate chips," he said. Whatever lapse of focus Jordan had shown earlier disappeared. "I said sprinkles," Jordan growled. Andy held up his hands defensively as tears filled the aunt's eyes. There was one last place to try. Andy dug through the cabinet where they had the to-go supplies. When they set out the kiddie cakes, they packaged the whipped cream and sprinkles separately where the cakes would melt the toppings on the way home. After pulling out all the trays, he saw it at the back of the cabinet. One plastic portion cup with a lid, full of sprinkles. There was no telling how long it had been there, but it had to work. "I found one," Andy said. The relief was palpable. "I have one request," Andy continued, tapping the sprinkles container. "Let Walter go." Yeah, let Walter go, Walter echoed. It wasn't so much charity for Walter, but not affording him another chance to make things worse. We need to think about your exit plan here, Andy said to Jordan. Jordan thought about it for a moment. He's annoying anyway, Jordan said. The knife dropped to the floor with a clank, the door locks turned, and the doors opened. Walter ran out without a word. The aunt and uncle stepped towards the doors silently. The doors slammed shut and locked again. Andy poured the sprinkles on the pancakes. The aunt and uncle slumped down at one of the tables. The second thing Andy remembered was that despite the fear he had seen in the eyes of the people in that pharmacy, he had been the most terrified person in the building. The cashier had calmly hit the alarm button, which complicated matters and sped up the timeline, just like how Walter was calling the cops in the parking lot. The pharmacist was older, and Andy wasn't the first addict he dealt with. He had reached for something under the counter as they spoke. Midway through demanding the drugs, Andy had gained a bit of clarity, like he'd woken up, but into a nightmare. He had wanted to run with every fiber of his being, but the drugs hadn't let him. What do you mean about an exit plan? Jordan asked. He was savoring the pancakes, even with the stale sprinkles. When I was young, I thought I had it all, Andy said. My dad was an electrician, and he told me that if I could pass my courses, get my license, I could come work with him. I could even get my own truck, take over the business. Then I got addicted to pills. The aunt interrupted. He's just a kid. Is that appropriate? She asked. Andy brushed her off. I think we're way beyond that, lady, Andy shot back, then turned back to Jordan. Anyway, tried to rob a pharmacy, everything went wrong, and I was still there when the cops showed up. You shouldn't be here when the cops show up. You're a criminal? The uncle asked. Was, Andy said. Prison for 5 years. I've been clean for 7. And I've got a meeting in an hour with a probation officer. If you guys hadn't walked in, I'd be on my way there now. Jordan finished a bite of the pancakes. Did you kill anyone? He asked, matter-of-factly. Andy shook his head. No, thank goodness, he answered. I was almost killed, though, and I got stabbed once in prison. Jordan finished the last bite of pancakes and set down the fork. I don't have an exit plan, he said. Andy didn't like the sound of that, but he also sensed some pain in the boy's voice. The drugs were eating me, Andy said. Tell me what's eating you. Maybe we can find a way out. Jordan looked up at Andy, tears forming in his eyes. There was some humanity in there after all. My mom told everyone that my father was a demon to get us some help, but no one believed her and they threw her in an institution and they drugged her up, Jordan said. And when I saw the sign, I thought of her. All the knives and forks and spatulas in the restaurant lifted up and pointed at them in threatening patterns. I asked to go see her and they said no, Jordan said softly, nodding at his aunt and uncle. I'm worried I'll never see her again, and this is all my fault. Andy remembered one last thing from the robbery. His gun hadn't been loaded. It had still felt heavy in his hoodie pocket that day, bullets or not, and still felt heavy on his soul. You've got a decision to make, Andy said. I have a probation meeting in a bit with the meanest officer in the entire world. She thinks I should still be in prison and will use any excuse to put me back. And I'm not going. Now that you've eaten, you need to let us all go, or you need to do what you came to do. The aunt grabbed the uncle with both arms and sobbed. I just want to go home, she said. It's okay, the uncle replied. It's okay, dear. Andy looked at them huddled, but he was losing sympathy. Do you believe her now? Andy asked them. We knew something was, wrong with him, the uncle stammered. But not that he was pure evil, Aunt seethed. That hadn't gone the way Andy had hoped. And now they know the truth, so what? Jordan said, crying more intensely as he thought he was at the end. They kill me? An exorcism? I go to prison? Like you said, I'm not going. I'm so sorry. Wait, Andy shouted. He had one last chance to connect. You're not evil, he continued, and I can prove it. Jordan looked up. The voices, your conscience, they're all telling you to kill us, aren't they? Andy asked. Maybe not with words, but it seems so incredibly clear that it's the only way, and you haven't done it yet. You're fighting it. Jordan's face was red with strain. Part of you wants to, so bad, right? Andy asked again, thinking of how nothing sounded better right then than popping a couple of pills and escaping the stress of the day, even if it meant ruining the life he'd cobbled together. Yes, Jordan screamed. I want to kill us all. Aunt nearly fainted. No, that's your dad talking, Andy shot back. You do that, and he wins. If that's what you wanted, you'd have killed us and taken us to see him. But you're fighting like hell. Is that really what you want? Then do it. No, the uncle commanded. Jordan pounded the counter. Or, Andy continued, we all walk out of here, and your aunt and uncle take you to see your mom, even if it's just to squeeze her hand and tell her you love her. And then you and your mom fight like hell every single day. That sounds so much harder, Jordan said. Andy nodded. It is, he said. But your mom needs you. She's worth it, right? Jordan pounded the counter several times. I can't, he yelled. I can't. Yes, you can, Andy said. You're already doing it. Shut up, Jordan shot back, and the flames on the stove shot up high. Shut up, shut up, shut up! Make your choice, Andy said, just like the pharmacist had said to him, with a gun that was actually loaded. Outside in the parking lot, Walter took a few sips from his flask while he waited impatiently for the police. Cop car finally pulled over at the street, and Walter ran to the driver's window. The officer sniffed the alcohol on Walter. What is it this time, Walter? The young officer demanded, annoyed. You know what it's like out there right now? You gotta believe me, there's this crazy wizard boy, Walter started manically, and he's making things float there was a knife that was just floating on my throat. Everything okay? The officer called out to Andy, who was locking the door behind a family of 3 as they left the diner. Andy waved and smiled, hoping the officer wouldn't notice how disheveled and exhausted the aunt and uncle were in the limited visibility. Life is beautiful, Andy yelled to the gray day. And he meant it. The officer shook his head at Walter and drove off. I hope you're right, Jordan said, letting snowflakes fall on his outstretched hands. Only one way to find out, Andy said. A bit later, Andy ducked into his probation officer's office with just a few minutes to spare. She had her coat on, and she was heading out the door. She nearly ran into Andy. Stared at him in disbelief. Today is Tuesday, right? Andy asked. She tried her best to scrunch her mouth into a smile. I didn't think you were going to make it, she said. Listen, it's snowing and... With all due respect, ma'am, Andy said, I'm here on time, and I want it on record that I'm clean and I've never been so grateful to be alive and have the chance to fight like hell another day.